channel. My name is Miriam and I thought I would make this video on my journey with the MCAT and sort of what I did to increase my score between the two times that I took this exam. This is my first ever video, so if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve, it will be very helpful, so drop them below down in the comments. Any other videos you guys would like to see after this one, please let me know, that would be helpful. And without further ado, let's get right into it. So I took the MCAT back in August of 2018, and I remember I had studied for about 3 months, but if I'm being honest, those 3 months weren't really 3 months, in the sense that I wasn't really engaged with my studying. I wasn't really taking it as seriously as I took it the second time around, which was this year. Those 3 months weren't really dedicated, or although I had the full 3 months to myself to study, I wasn't taking my study time seriously and I wasn't maximizing my time. Fast forward to 2020, which is this year, I decided that I would try my luck with this test again, and that this time I sort of would change my study habits in order to do well on this exam and sort of adapt my study habits and try to take the exam again. So I had originally scored 498 in August of 2018 when I first took the MCAT. And my sub-scores were a bit unbalanced as well, so it wasn't a very good score as you can see. But in 2020, which is this year, I took it again in July, and I just got back my score yesterday and I got a 510. So that was a 12-point increase from my last score when I took it 2 years ago. And I thought I'd hop on here and sort of share what I did differently this time that really helped push my score. So tip number 1 is to really focus on identifying your content gaps and solidifying your content and knowledge before actually moving into practice. Now, I know a lot of people emphasize the importance of practice, and it is very, very important. But in order to do well in MCAT, you need to have the two go hand in hand. You need to have the content, a very solid content base, as well as the practice, and they have to go hand in hand. When I first took the MCAT back in 2018, I took the advice focus on practice too literally, and I really didn't dive deep into the content before hitting practice questions, which I know may sound counterintuitive to some of you based on what I just said and the advice that a lot of people read, but you really do need to know your stuff in order to do well. So this time around, I really set aside for myself like 3 weeks to a month of solid content prep and just studying the content again and really starting from scratch. So I assumed that I knew nothing, and I hit my books. So I used Kaplan to study for the MCAT, and I also watched a lot of Khan Academy videos. I went on YouTube. There's the Organic Chemistry Tutor, there's AK lectures, there's a bunch of sources that you can use. I also found the Miles Down review sheets very helpful, and you can find those on Reddit. So that's something that I did differently this time that I hadn't done or taken seriously the first time, which is really focus on honing in my content. So towards the end of my content review, I began incorporating UWorld questions. I began sort of doing practice questions from online sources, and this is how you really identify your content gaps. So at about 3 weeks, when I was starting to do UWorld questions, I noticed that there were a lot of topics in chem and physics that I was really weak in, and I noticed a trend in certain topics that I kept getting wrong. So I had a journal, and I also had some Excel sheets in order to log the topics that I kept getting wrong, and I literally took every single one of those topics and I made a big list just on a sheet of paper. I jotted down every sort of concept that I kept seeing was either I was getting it wrong or that was high yield, and I wrote them down. And then I tackled literally every one of those things on the sheet until I felt comfortable with them. So for example, I kept getting questions wrong about mirror and lenses. I noticed a trend in my practice materials that every time I had a question on mirrors or on lenses, I kept getting them wrong. So I really took the time to watch videos on it. I Googled, I went on Reddit, I asked my friends. You really just have to reach out for help and try to make sure that you tackle your weaknesses. So how did I go about really correcting my full lengths and really tracking what I kept getting wrong? I made Excel sheets and I had different columns. So I put the sections. So for example, chem physics, biochem, cars, and psychology and sociology. I had the 4 sections. Then I had another column for the questions. What question did you get wrong? What number was it on the full length? The other column right beside that, I put what my reasoning was. What was my reasoning when I first did this question? And I wouldn't look at the AAMC explanations at all. I would just literally type out my reasoning and how I chose the answer that I chose. And this is sort of a method of blind review, and it's very, very helpful. Once I finished this, then I would go look at the AAMC answer and explanation, and I would see, did I get it right or did I get it wrong? And I would color code the whole row. So let's say I got the question right. I would make it green on my Excel sheet. I would put yes, good logic, and then I would see if my reasoning matched the AAMC reasoning, and I would log that on my Excel sheet. If it wasn't right, I would mark it as red, and I would say no, I got it incorrect, and I would look at the discrepancy between my reasoning and the AAMC reasoning. But this is only after I wrote up my explanation and my thought process. Now, since I reviewed my AAMC materials twice, if I got a question initially right, but then the second time that I went through the material I got it wrong, I would mark it as yellow. So I would color code it yellow to show that I got it correct the first time, but the second time I got it incorrect, and this may have been because I guessed the first time, or that I didn't fully understand the concept that I needed to understand in order to answer the question. In that case, I would also, so I forgot to mention this, but in that case, I would have a column with the AAMC logic or explanation that they gave me, and then beside that, I would have another column for new things that I learned and new concepts, or things that I missed in the question. And then another final column beside that for useful explanations from Reddit, from the internet, and for any new concepts that I wanted to keep in mind, and useful images, etc., diagrams, figures, whatever it was. So I literally think that it took me almost always over 12 hours to review every single full length, whereas the first time when I studied for the MCAT, I would rush through that full length in 3 to 4 hours. But you really do need all those hours because it really is a long process to get through each and every question. That's another point that I want to make. You shouldn't just be doing this review for the questions that you got wrong. You should be doing it for all the questions on your full length. All the questions on your full length, go through each and every one, write out your thought process, make sure that you got it right, and if you didn't get it right, see where you went wrong in the reasoning and what is different between your reasoning and the AAMC reasoning, and write it out in words. Literally type it out and keep track of that. And then beside it, write what was it that I missed that would have helped me to answer this question right. Is it a concept that I didn't understand? Is it something in the passage that I missed, a sentence? So that's another thing. You can write like the relevant info from the passage that I missed that would have helped me to answer this question. And by doing this, I really saw my score go up quickly, and it really was efficient because I could go back and review these mistakes frequently in order to make sure that my reasoning aligns with AAMC and that I wasn't making the same mistakes in reasoning again and again.